Welcome to Season 3 of Hashing Out the Law. I'm your host, Arash Hashemi. On this episode, my guest is Patricia Wenskunas, the founder and CEO of Crime Survivors, Inc. Patricia has gained national recognition for her tireless advocacy on behalf of the victims of violent crime. Crime Survivors is dedicated to the proposition that with community support, respectful advocacy, and hopeful healing, one can survive a violent crime and thrive in their personal lives. Patricia stresses the important distinction between being a victim and a survivor, and it is this mindset that forms the basis for the organization's universally praised work. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hashing Out the Law. My name is Arash Hashemi. I'm your host. On this episode, I have Patricia Wenskunas, and I've been practicing that. I hope I got it right. Hi, Patricia. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. Patricia, you are a victim of a brutal crime, and you were attacked by, I believe, your personal trainer. And after surviving the crime, you decided to start an organization to help people that are actual surviving victims of crimes, correct?
Correct, yes.
Tell us a little bit about, if you don't mind, by the way, the incident and how that incident inspired you to start your organization.
So on April 4th of 2002, my personal trainer came into my house, drugged me, wrapped my face and head in saran wrap, beat me black and blue, screaming that when he was done killing me, he was going to kill my son, which was 12 at the time. I think I was really living a victim's life because I had been victimized prior to that day by other individuals throughout my life. And so I think there's a difference between living a victim's life and a survivor's life. Now, I was able to get away from him. I was able to eventually call 911 at a neighbor's house. He was charged with deliberate premeditated attempted murder, burglary in the first degree, assault with a deadly weapon, and criminal threats. Through our legal system, which I thought was really bad back in 2003, 2002, he ended up serving approximately 120 days. But for me, I think the greatest gift was to be able to still be breathing, to have my breath, to make a promise. For me personally, with faith, there is hope. So I made a promise to God that with each and every next breath, I would live for community above self, which all these years later, I like to say that I stayed true with that promise and that commitment. I feel like I've been given a calling and a blessing and a gift to not only survive, but to be able to turn my personal situation and circumstance around to help other victims to know that they're not defined by the crime, that they can survive, they can have hope for healing, they can thrive in their life. Because I may have been a victim of a crime, but I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor, I'm a thriver, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a community leader, and I'm Patricia Wenskunas, so separate from what has happened to me, in all honesty. So
that's great. One thing that you said brings me to my next question. You said our legal system. Where did this happen?
It happened in the city of Irvine, in Orange County in California. And to me, it doesn't matter what city you're in, whether it's the safest city throughout the nation, whether it's in the worst neighborhood throughout the nation, it doesn't matter. Crime can happen anywhere and it can happen to anybody.
Right. It's actually surprising because Orange County is known as a more strict county when it comes to criminal justice than LA County is. And for the listeners and viewers who are not familiar with this part of the country, LA County and Orange County are neighbors. And this metropolitan area is so large that Orange County and LA County are different counties. They have different jurisdictions, but it's almost like one big, huge city. People travel from Orange County, LA County all day, every day for work, pleasure, everything. Now, that brings me to my next question. As you know, recently in LA County, the incumbent district attorney lost, and the new district attorney, George Gascón, on his first day, issued some directives. And a lot of controversy has arisen from these directives. And one of them is that victims' rights are being trampled upon. Now, I know that you created Crime Survivors and you're an advocate for victims' rights. What is your opinion about Gascon's policies, and do you think they actually benefit victims, or do you think they're hinder victims' rights?
It's really devastating to me as a survivor myself, and somebody that worked extremely hard here in the state of California to get Marcys Law passed, which, if you're not familiar with Marcys Law, it passed back in 2008. And many individuals in the community participated, supported, did everything we could to be able to get that Marcys Law passed, which gives victims 17 rights under Marcys Law. I know there's many other states that also have Marcys Law. And it feels as if we're being re-victimized by a district attorney that's supposed to be like, I almost see him as a public defender, in all honesty. Like, I feel like he should have ran to become public defender rather than being district attorney, because what he represents is nothing what a district attorney would typically represent. A district attorney is supposed to be there to support victims, to be able to fight for justice, to, of course, balance the scales of justice and hold those accountable that have committed crimes. But he's not doing that. He has trampled all over Marcys Law, which is, to me, an insult to Marcy herself, that was murdered by her boyfriend, to Marcella Leach, her mother, that was a huge icon in the victims movement, to Dr. Henry T. Nicholas, that is funded and is Marcy's brother and has funded Marcys Law and has made it a great calling to be able to give victims rights. And it has re-victimized families of murder, survivors of domestic violence, rape, sexual assaults. We have Marcys Law. It's in our Constitution. We have a right to Marcys Law. We have those 17 rights. So for me, for him to not be able to afford and assert those rights on behalf of victims, it's not withheld within the law, because we do, as survivors, have a right to Marcys Law, to those 17 rights, of which the district attorney should be giving them. But he's dismissing charges. He's not notifying those victims in advance to let them know that he's dismissing charges. So in essence, he's actually violating Marcys Law, and he's re-victimizing and violating Marcys Law, to be honest with you.
Right. And there is lots of pushback from his own people. I don't want to say every deputy district attorney is pushing back, but there is a large group. And in fact, their union has filed a lawsuit against him. And the former, not this past former, but the one before her, the district attorney, Steve Cooley, has actually grabbed the mantle of fighting for victims' rights. And he's saying that whatever Gascón is trying to do is not right, and it's outside the scope of his powers. My question to you is, he is district attorney. He has issued these directives. He is doing things that people argue are outside of his powers or are outside of his powers. How do you fight that? How do you stop that?
Well, first and foremost, I have to thank Steve Cooley. I have to thank some of the district attorneys, deputy district attorneys out there that are being a voice for the voiceless and speaking out, especially on behalf of victims of crime. I have to thank many of the other attorneys that are out there day in and day out that are really being a voice, because for a long time we have not had voices for victims or for survivors, and we've been lacking that. If anything has worked in the favor of victims is many people coming forward like Steve Cooley to represent victims under Marcys Law. And for me personally, I don't know how to fix it. I'm not an expert at anything, to be honest. I'm a survivor. I'm trying to do God's work. I'm trying to make a difference for other victims and survivors so that they can survive, that they know that they have rights under Marcys Law. Their voice does matter. They are supposed to be part of the legal process because they were the ones that were victimized. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is I'm thankful for anybody that files a lawsuit against him to stop this madness, to stop re-victimizing victims, and to be able to balance the scales of justice. I mean, I'm all for rehabilitation, to be honest with you, with the exception of 2 crimes, intentional murder and molestation of a child. I don't think that you can be rehabilitated on those 2, but that's my personal belief. Everybody else, I think you can have rehabilitation, but you have to be able to have a consequence. There has to be accountability. We all make mistakes in our life, but you have to be able to learn from your mistakes before you're just saying, okay, well, you're supposed to be sentenced to this, but now we have a new DA and he has new directives and he doesn't want to follow these rules or these laws. That's not how our system works. And to be honest, I feel as if it's an insult to all district attorneys prior to him, and to those that will come after him. And so I would like to ask him to please listen to victims. And when I say to victims and when I say survivors, I mean victims and survivors that have been victimized of a crime by an offender, not by someone that feels that they're a victim of the system. In a sense, he has also put people in his office by another organization that even stole our name, which uses our name, which is misrepresentation of our organization. And he has put them in his leadership team. And to me, that's so disappointing because those are not real victims. Those are not crime survivors. Those are individuals that have made offenses. They committed crimes against other individuals, and now they're calling themselves crime survivors of the system, which is not accurate or factual either.
Right. And for the listeners and the viewers, what you mean is this other organization is comprised of crime survivors, for lack of a better term, and they are the ones who actually committed the crime and they have rehabilitated themselves. And that organization is not the same as your organization, which is crime survivors, and it's the actual victims of a crime that have survived it and moved on. Now, having touched upon your organization, could you please tell us a little bit about what your organization does, and if there is someone out there who is a victim of a crime, a survivor, and is looking for guidance, how do they reach out to you, and what services are available to them?
So, we are here as a nonprofit organization providing support and guidance to all victims of violent crime. So whether that be families of murder, survivors of attempted murder, rape, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, elder abuse, or human trafficking. And for us, I mean, obviously now it's COVID, it's the pandemic, so things have changed drastically, especially for victims, which makes it even more challenging for victims. But we are here to listen and to hear what a victim needs. I'm not here to dictate on what a family member of a loved one that was murdered needs, or whether it's domestic violence or rape or sexual assault. I want to listen and hear what the victim needs, whether that be clothing, whether that be food, whether that be relocation, whether that be travel, whether that be counseling and therapy, whether it being advocating and being a voice on their behalf when they're unable to speak or be heard. We're able to provide that. We're able to provide case management, wraparound services, support groups, art for healing classes. So many different things. We have so many different programs. I don't want to take all the time on all of the stuff that we do, because most people that are listening or seeing this, they can go to our website, which is crimesurvivors.org. They can see a little bit more about the who, the what, the why, and how we go out and help victims. I would say the main 4 components of our organization is to bring awareness to the community and let every community know we're not here to scare you, but crime happens everywhere. So be aware, make sure that you're able to protect and keep your family safe and healthy. Prevention, how do you prevent crime from happening? How do you really take self-defense and safety classes? How do you make sure that your house and your business is safe? Whether you're leaving your home when it's dark at night, do you walk to your car as you're carrying your groceries? Also being able to be a voice for the voiceless, being able to advocate on behalf of victims, and whether that be with our elected officials, our government agencies, our local businesses, corporations, communities. And the main component always is healing, is to really let victims to know that they're not defined by the crime. There is help, there is resources, there is support here through our organization, Crime Survivors, or through many of the other organizations, whether it be the victim assistance programs, whether it be trauma recovery centers, whether it be counseling and therapy, clinicians. We work together as a team because we feel that not one organization can do everything, but we work together as a team.
Right. You mentioned COVID and it has changed everything. So all your meetings and everything, all your groups, are you guys making those available to victims via Zoom or via video? How are you going about providing services that you did pre-COVID?
Yeah, so it's so different because everything was obviously in person before, and so now the kind of the difficult thing is for us. I mean, we've stayed in this whole time. We've have helped probably more victims in 2020 that we've ever helped, and now we're in our 18th year this year as an organization. And so the hardest thing I think for me is being able to provide, outside the door, or making sure to wear masks, because what people don't understand is, especially for sexual assault victims, rape victims, someone like myself that had saran wrap wrapped around my face, to wear a mask, it's triggering, it's traumatizing every time I have to put a mask on. To be able to have to wear a mask in front of a victim where you can't shake their hand, you can't give them a hug. They need that right now. But being able to have to provide diapers and gift cards and accommodate all of those kind of things in this climate, of which would have been different prior to the pandemic. But we're still doing all of those kind of services, providing those items to victims, doing a lot of our classes, a lot of our trainings on Zoom, on Teams, on different online platforms, a lot of phone calls. And victims are very concerned and worried right now. The pandemic has added another layer to the insecurity, victims not feeling safe. We talked about Gascón, we talked about LA, everything that's happening there that he's doing with zero bail, for instance. When you think about a victim, especially domestic violence, when you think that victim is already afraid, they're stuck in their homes because of the pandemic, this person could have been arrested for knocking this victim's teeth out, and he's wanting to release them with zero bail when the people of the state of California in November voted to be able to keep bail. And so for us, we're true believers in the bail system, because it allows the offender to be able to get bail if they need to. If they have that, they go ahead and they can make bail, but they're going to show up to their court dates, right? They're going to be held accountable. They're not going to go ahead and break their bail and go back out to the victim and re-victimize that victim again. Where now, if they have no bail, they're going to go on. Where do you think they're going to go? They're arrested, or they're released on their own. And where do you think they're going to go? They're going to go right back to that victim. And now, not only are they going to knock their teeth out, but most likely they're going to murder that individual.
Right. You mentioned no bail, where Gascón is trying to do that. We actually had an episode prior to this one where our guest was, he was a executive director of the American Bail Coalition. And that's exactly what we talked about, whether Gascón has the power to eliminate cash bail, especially because in the same election that he won, the voters of California voted against the elimination of cash bail statewide. Let's go back to your organization. Now, you provide all these services, and you provide diapers, all these things. Now you're a nonprofit. Obviously, you welcome people who want to help, even though they're not victims. If people want to donate money or anything to your organization, how do they go about doing that?
Well, and thank you for asking, because yes, we are a nonprofit, and we don't get any large government or federal funding. Not that we can't get it. It's just I'm a voice for the voiceless, and I'm very outspoken. And sometimes when you're outspoken, government doesn't like to give you funds, or they like to pull them back. So we don't get them. We get our donations from businesses and corporations and individuals and foundations and entrepreneurs and philanthropists, and every penny counts that comes into our organization. We're really proud that over 91% of every penny that comes into the organization goes directly back out into programs and services. So anybody that wants to give to our organization, they can give at crimesurvivors.org. They can give us a call at 844-853-HOPE. And then we can direct them on whether to mail a check or to drop off a check, or we can pick that up, or credit cards, whatever that is. People can donate stocks if they want. So we have many different options. And like I said, we're really proud that money goes back into the community to really directly help victims and survivors. And I'm probably most proud of our resource center here. I'm proud of now being in our 18th year. And being extremely transparent and really making sure that we go above and beyond the call of duty for our community.
That's great. That's awesome to hear. I do have one other question for you. You're based in Orange County, California, correct? Your organization?
Yes, so we're based in, our resource center is based here in Orange County, but we serve all of Southern California. So we spend a lot of time in Los Angeles, Riverside, San Diego, San Bernardino, Ventura, and we're always expanding, but we also never turn anybody away. You know, I've had people call from Michigan, from Texas, from Tennessee, from other states. And even though we're not located in other states or other areas, I will never just hang up the phone and say, I can't help you. I will always refer those victims to the Victim Assistance Program, to the National Domestic Violence Hotlines or National Sexual Assault Hotline, or I will always take the time to research some other organization in that area in order to refer them to victims as well.
Thank you. You answered my question. I was going to say if someone outside of Orange County where you're based, but you do serve all of Southern California, all the surrounding counties. I know you're a very busy woman. I appreciate you coming on and discussing your thoughts about Gascón and teaching us or having us learn more about your organization. Is there anything you'd like to say or add before we end this episode?
I mean, I would just like to put a plea out to the new DA. And I would like to ask him to sit down with the real victims and the real survivors and the real families of murder and rape and child abuse and sexual assault, and be able to listen and hear the victims and the survivors, and to be able to change some of the policies that he has put into place. Because we deserve to have our Marcys Law rights. Victims deserve to have justice throughout our legal system and the legal process. We deserve to be able to have bail, to be able to feel safe in our home or at our businesses. So I really put out a plea to ask him, you know, to call me and sit down with me, to be able to talk to me as a leader in the community and to be able to listen to our voices. And if he believes in rehabilitation and he wants to make that change, he should also listen to the victims and hear our voices as well and be able to provide us justice that we're afforded within our system.
Thank you. I hope he does hear you and he does respond to you. I know that you're not the only one concerned about what he's doing, but devil's advocate on the other side, a lot of people are for what he's doing and they think he's doing the right thing. So it's going to be an interesting few years ahead of us to see how this all plays out.
Well, and we can all agree to disagree with respect. We can still be respectful to one another. We don't all have to agree, but I believe that we can all come to the table to make our community safer and more better, especially in today's climate. When you look in Los Angeles County and you look at the murder rates that are going through the roof, and you think about years ago when the gangs started recruiting younger kids, 14, 12, 16 years old, because now under his rule, 16 and 17-year-olds can go out and molest children. They can go ahead and murder people, and then they're not going to go into adult court, and they can just be released in a very short amount of time. And to me, that's very scary. And until you are a victim yourself or a loved one is a victim, then you're never going to know what it's like. And I do not wish upon what I've went through in my lifetime. I would never wish that upon anybody. And all I'm asking for is that our voices be heard and that we can balance the scales of justice.
So eloquently said. I thank you. For all the listeners and viewers, please visit crimesurvivors.org for more information. If you are a victim out there and you do need assistance, please reach out to Patricia and her organization. I'm sure they'll be more than willing and happy to help you out. Patricia, it's been a pleasure. I wish you the best. And maybe later down the line, we can talk again as things develop and see how everything has settled down.
Yeah, God willing. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.